Welcome back to the channel, folks. Dan here, and I'm talking today about Sony Xperia 1 Mark 6. I have had many thoughts on this over the last week and a bit that I've had the phone. Some good, some really not so good. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. Obviously, we've had the change going from the 21:9 screen to this slightly wider format. It's actually pretty nice. I still prefer the 21:9, but this is pretty good. Other improvements we've had on there is with the telephoto sensor. That now goes up to a 7.1 times zoom, but the actual camera sensors themselves haven't changed at all. We'll get onto that. Other improvements, we've got a flashlight that actually is worth a damn now, which is great because I don't know if you guys use your flashlight on your phone all the time like I do. I mean, I literally roam around the house at night with the flashlight on instead of using the lights in the house. That probably sounds absolutely insane to some people. Other people are like, yeah, I do that as well. The Xperia's flashlight was, in the last few years that I've used it, it's been absolutely terrible. It's great now, it's bright, it's useful. The main improvement, though, with this phone over, say, the Xperia 1 Mark 5 is the battery life. Now, I have been getting some insane numbers from this phone. I went over 10 hours of screen on time the other day with a mix of usage on data, Wi-Fi, areas with not much signal, and I still had 30%. I think it was over 30% of my battery left. Crazy. And that is in part down to this new 1080p efficient display. Now it's LTPO as well, so it can drop down to 1 Hz, technically. But this is a big downgrade from the 4K screen that we had on the 1 Mark 5. Now admittedly it ran in 1080p most of the time, but it was set at 120 Hz all the time unless you turned it down to 60. Battery life on the 1 Mark 5 was actually still pretty good. You could get through a day no problem with it. The change to the 1080p screen is an interesting one. And you'd think it would make sense if the 1 Mark 5 was running 1080p most of the time anyway, sure. But Sony always had this thing where it was like, we've got this 4K screen, we've got the best panel there is in terms of resolution because you guys, the content creators, using our phones, need to be able to view your content in the best possible way. So now they're giving us a 1080p screen. I don't know how this fits in with the ethos that they were going for with Xperia, but kind of seems to me like they've thrown that out of the window. Now, it looks perfectly fine. It works perfectly fine. It's brighter, sure. But it's still a slightly lower pixel dense display than what we had on the 1 Mark 5. Is it really a panel suitable for a phone that costs £1,300? You tell me. I will leave that one open to you. Then when it comes to the cameras, which I think is the main issue with this phone, we've got no sensor upgrades this year at all. Now, I did a video a little while back now talking about the rumors for the Xperia 1 Mark 6 and how I thought that the rumor where they were going to put XMOR-T sensors in on all the cameras on the back was the likely rumor. Turned out to be wrong. I was definitely wrong on that. Sony opted to stick with the same sensors and just give us a little bit more zoom range on the telephoto. There's also telemacro built into that now. They've got a macro mode built into the ultra wide as well. I like that touch that they've given us both macro modes. Pretty cool, pretty cool. But the problem there is that you then have an ultra wide sensor and a telephoto sensor that are still really low resolution and very, very small on the sensor size. So they're not that usable. So the telephoto is not too bad if you're doing sort of portrait style shots, but if you're looking at comparisons where you'll see, you know, things really far away, it's looking at things really far away, the image will be terrible. It'll be absolutely terrible because it does look awful. And equally, if you're in low light, also not very good. Sony really needed to upgrade those sensors this year, which is kind of why I was hopeful that they would, because the competition is way ahead, especially on the telephoto side. We have a little bit of a mini war going on at the minute between the manufacturers as to who can make the best telephotos. I mean, you look at the likes of Xiaomi and Oppo, they have 2 telephotos on there, really high quality as well, and Sony's charging more, which is fine if you offer enough, but I kind of feel like we needed some XMOT sensors in there, just to sort of give the competition a run for its money, and to just make the sensors maybe all round 50 megapixel or 48 megapixel. And that inconsistency plays out once you get into the new camera app. Now, Sony this year has decided to get rid of, for now, the Videography Pro and the Cinematography Pro apps. So a lot of the folks that want to use an Xperia for video work, which Xperia seems to be very much focused around video work, you don't have those apps. You don't have those apps. Sony has removed those apps. Instead, we now have a new unified camera app where those features aren't included yet. I don't know whose decision it was to remove the previous camera apps, at least at this stage, before actually implementing it. Instead, they're going to give us a software update when the new Android version comes along, which will probably be, judging by last year, I'd say maybe September time. You know, we were supposed to get the new bokeh mode with the Xperia 1.5 last year, but that never materialized. So basically, they want you to upgrade to a phone or buy a phone that's specifically aimed at content creators and video types without the video features, on the hope that you'll get it in an update. Just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Videography Pro, by the way, is an app that I absolutely adore using. That app is fantastic. It puts all other apps to shame when it comes to video. There's nothing that even comes close, in my opinion. To remove that and not give us the features in the new unified camera app, which, by the way, now also doesn't look like the camera app that we had before. So it's a little bit more sort of generic, like other phones now. Whenever companies try to cater to the masses and disregard the niche of users that they have, things don't go well. And I can't say that I have seen a positive response to this camera app from all the people that I know that are Xperia users, including myself. I think the app is terrible. Just in terms of the way you can catch things and change the mode really easily by accident and all this sort of stuff. You have to keep tapping through to change the frame rate. It's just a really bad UI. It's just really, really bad. And I don't know what they were thinking in changing the look of the Pro mode to look exactly the same. I don't know what was wrong with it before. For people that are only using auto anyway, why would they care? I just don't know. I don't know. I'm still gobsmacked that it even changed. I mean, it's nearly 2 weeks now since the phone came out. I've had it for just over a week. And I find the camera app a little bit frustrating because I just don't want to use that interface. I just don't. It's not very good. Also, things like the new 48 megapixel mode, full resolution, that would have been really nice to have if we'd had new sensors, 48 megapixels on all the sensors, and we could even shoot in RAW with it, which you can't. It's just 48 megapixels, just the image, there it is. Do what you want with it. You can't shoot in RAW with it. This also applies to the telemacro, and I think even the macro mode as well. No RAW. Why? It seems to me Sony's kind of lost the plot a little bit. I kind of feel like they're trying to go a little bit more mainstream, and they've really not thought through the effect they're having on their actual user base, which are a very set niche of people. They want those features. We want those features. So I'm kind of frustrated with it. When it comes to the actual images out of the camera, to me, there's really not much different to last year. There's really not. So I'm not seeing any benefit to that at the moment. The only thing that is improved, and you can see this when you get the autofocus tracking and everything as well, is that it's definitely improved. Like, I've had the autofocus focusing on our dog Milo, and he sort of looked away, and it's still tracking, it's still doing the eye tracking with his head turned away. and it's still like focusing on a certain point. It's wild. It's wild. Sony is still killing it in the autofocus game. I can't take that away from them. But my God, Sony, can we just revert everything back to how it was last year in terms of apps, in terms of camera apps? Because this is a disaster. It's a disaster. And if you keep on this path, I'm not going to lie, I really think that they're going to kill off the Xperia brand, because I feel like they've lost their way now. But otherwise, in terms of all the other changes, in terms of the screen and the aspect ratio, those things are fine. It's just the cameras and the software that are really, really negative for me. We need better camera hardware. There's no universe in where this camera hardware is acceptable for a £1,300 device. There's just not. There's just not. And yeah, I'm not going to lie, like within the first few days, I was, and some of the guys that I talk to about phone stuff quite often will know this, I was genuinely tempted to sell the phone. I was that annoyed. I've had a little bit of time to settle down since then, and I'm still annoyed, just not quite as annoyed. We're going to see how we go. Obviously, this is just over a week. I'm going to do a review, and we'll hopefully have that out in the next few weeks. But I want to give myself time with it properly as well. We've got the vlog monitor and the Bluetooth grip to go with it. So it's going to be a bit of a deep dive. We're going to be doing some streaming, some recording out and about, see how things go. But in terms of videography, it's still going to be really, really good. You just not got the control that you maybe want with the apps being removed. But for photography, if you're a main lens user, the main lens is still very, very good. But we still have the issue with photography of subjects and harsher lighting in the background. And it always blows out the background. This has been an issue on Xperia for a while anyway. It's still a problem on this, exactly the same. But when you get a shot in good light, the colours, everything, focus, the natural look to it is still my preferred look for a photo. So, you know, Sony's still got its strengths, but the camera hardware needs to get better. But we'll have a proper review out soon, and we'll have plenty of camera samples, video samples, whatever else. I'm interested to hear what you guys think. If you've got the Xperia 1 Mark 6, or if you have a 1.5 and you were thinking of upgrading, drop comments below. Let me know what you think. Stay grounded. I will see you all very soon.